Megan Lynn here, Empaths, psychics, mediums, whatever. I'm on my way to work. But I have been doing a bit of traveling. I just got back from Jerome, Arizona. So I don't know if you guys are familiar. Jerome is a very haunted location. It's an old mining town in Arizona. So Arizona actually has a lot of haunted locations, but Jerome is especially unique in the way that it was a ghost town for many, many years, and then they had residents move in. There's only I think maybe 100 people that live there. I think maybe 100. But yeah, so they built it up, and so now it's a kind of a tourist attraction. But the very unique thing about it is I decided to talk about because I had a very unique experience. I've been to Jerome many, many times because it's very interesting when me and my friends go there, it's because I have friends who are mediums. They always push me in front because they know that I have more experience with the darker side of things. So I just kind of wanted to talk to everybody about empaths and intuitives and why they're pulled to addictions of any sort of substance abuse, why they're pulled to it. And I'll kind of give you an example why. And a lot of it has to do with a lack of cultivating. There's not a lot of people that empaths, especially intuitives who deal with the darker side of things. A lot of people are afraid of it, but it's a real thing that people are experiencing. So I just kind of want to explain a couple of the reasons. In my early 20s, I had, and it wasn't terrible substance abuse, but I was starting to have experiences, I guess, before I was woke, but I've always had weird experiences. But in my early 20s, I definitely started to experience things, and it was always on the brink of sleep. So that's when, just so you guys, if you guys aren't familiar with different level entities, you're going to start to experience those typically on the brink of being asleep and awake, because that's when your consciousness is at its weakness, or its weakest, is when you're in between states, because you're not solidified in any certain one. So I started to experience things. So what I made a habit, honestly, out of doing is I would have a drink. So I would either have a glass of wine or something before I went to bed, and that was kind of the only way I could sleep, because I was having so many experiences at night that my senses were so peaked that I would experience things at night. I couldn't sleep all night. I would hear things all night. I didn't have boundaries at that point, or any sort of tools or assistance or help with how to prevent those. So I'm just going to go into a specific instance, and it was funny because my daughter's actually starting to experience this stuff too, and she did experience it the other night. So we went up to Jerome for a day. Jerome's an old mining town. A lot of people, just so you know, it's very hard for me to get grounded in Jerome, and the reason being is because the pavement there, all the streets in Jerome actually contain the bones of the mining people. There's a lot of prostitution there, a lot of death, a lot of fighting, a lot of squabbles, that kind of thing. So it's a very low level kind of energy in Jerome. But that being said, when I get there, I can barely ground because I'm picking up all the energies of these deaths, these traumatic deaths, things like that. So we're walking around, and I know a lot about Jerome. I've done the they had a 3-hour tour I did. I've done the ghost tours, things like that. But there's just a lot of death there. So that being said, there's the Jerome Grand Hotel that used to be an infirmary, and they turned it into a hotel. I have had many experiences there. A lot of it I really find is more residual energy, but there has been a lot of deaths there. There's been a lot of deaths in the building next to it. But it was funny because I had experiences. I decided to take my friends there's this little chapel there. And I've had experiences, and I had it again with this little girl that's there. There's a little girl spirit she stays in the chapel. So we walked in, and immediately they could sense that it was very heavy. It's very heavy and like dense in there, but it's this cute little, it's eerily quiet chapel. But we went in there and we kind of stayed for a minute until, you know, everybody was ready to get out. But I did come into contact while I was there with this other energy, and I had to back up a couple times. It was this other, I didn't try to decipher what it was at the time, but it was this energy, and it was swiping at me. And so I kind of backed up, and then I went to move forward again, and it did it again. So it was this swiper, we'll call him, I guess. So we ended up, you know, we had lunch, we had a great day, ended up going home, and I'm laying in bed at night, and I was exhausted when I got back, you guys. So when I got back, I was dead set on going to bed. I took my Calm, which is like a melatonin, magnesium kind of drink, and I decided I was just gonna, you know, I was really excited actually. I thought I was gonna sleep really good. I stayed up till I think 12:30. Mind you, I got in bed at about 8:30 till about 12:30, and then got back on YouTube. I could not fall asleep. So I decided at that point that I was just going to meditate, because usually if I'm kept up awake for a certain amount of time, there's a reason that I need to be awake. So I decided to meditate at that point. So I went into a meditation, and a lot of people who have their third eye open, you actually don't need to close your eyes. You can see these things. You can visually see them with your eyes open. So I ended up, because it was dark anyway, I just had my eyes open. And I started to see a lot of things. But I did identify, I guess the thing, so Jerome's known for spirits following you home. A lot of psychic mediums will say that to you, that they have experience with spirits following you home. This swiper energy was a straight up demon, and I ended up I saw him, and he was almost like vampiric looking, like the old vampire movies where they're like white skinned, naked, but he had horns, and I can't recall any ears or anything, but he kept trying to swipe at me. And the reason why I identified him is I was kind of on the brink of sleep. So this is why a lot of people who have experience with dark entities, who don't know how to handle them, they will turn to some sort of substance abuse to numb their high sensitivity. It's because every time on the brink of sleep, from 8:30 to probably 4:30 in the morning, every time I was on the brink of sleep, something under my bed, and it was this swiper, I'm going to call them swiper because I don't give them badass names because they're low levels, but every time I was on the brink of sleep, I thought that it was my daughter kicking my bed. And it was basically like somebody was under my bed kicking it. And every time I was on the brink of sleep for hours and hours and hours. And then I quickly identified it as they'll put these like false sounds in your head, or they'll try to like manipulate your reality and play tricks on you. So it was literally just me for hours and hours and hours. The second I try to go to sleep, get woken up. The reason why I identified it was I went into a meditation, and what I can do when I meditate is there's a certain frequency that it's like an echolocation that you can locate them. So I ended up echolocating, and it's a very high-pitched frequency. I feel like it's a frequency maybe that dogs hear, or that they can only hear, that helped me to locate him. And it's weird because I feel he was trying to swipe at me again, and the second that he tried to swipe, I'd get kind of like a zap, and that's almost like, it's like you have to work on your aura, guys. Your aura, you can kind of create, I call it the electric fence. So that's the charge I'll get if one comes into my aura, or people who experience like mediums and psychics who experience jumpers, spirits who try to jump their bodies. It's because they don't have a strong, like I call it the electric fence around their aura. So any sort of any sort of psychics or sensitives who deal with these kind of entities, they're pulled towards substance abuse because they're not skilled in how to protect themselves. They also, for the most part, don't have a lot of guidance. I know I had to go through all this stuff by myself, as far as when it comes to negative entities or experiences that you're having. I don't do that anymore, obviously. I'm not into that anymore, but again, it just has to do with the dulling of the senses. The thing that makes us amazing is that our senses are always heightened, and I understand sometimes it gets exhausting, but that's if, a lot of sensitives, if they have experiences with like drugs or alcohol or anything like that, it comes from a not being grounded and not being centered, not knowing what they're dealing with. Also, we're like, honestly, I would just get fucking tired. Like, I went through a 3-week period where I was just having non-stop experiences every single night, and I wasn't sleeping at all. So just so you guys know, you can tell them to go away. You can command them. You can, it's just like in the 3D. Nothing has a right to infringe on your well-being. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about that, just email me at wmegan939@gmail.com. I'm going to try to do... I guess that was a little bit on the dark side, but I really wanted to do my air signs video today, and it just wasn't vibing very well. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me, drop a comment. If you guys want readings on specific signs, please let me know. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. It should be a good Saturday today. I'm going to work, and hopefully I make a lot of money, and you guys do too. So you guys have a great rest of the day. We'll talk soon. Bye.